seasons are getting ready to open. Big Ten play here at Minnesota are off to a rough start to their season, while Penn State off to their best start since 1980. But not quite yet today as we welcome everybody into Medler Field in State College, Pennsylvania. You can see tarp on the field today as we have a postponement between the Minnesota Golden Gophers and Penn State Nittany Lions. Welcome, everybody. This is We Are Sports. Brian McLaughlin. This is Zach Kaplan and Tyler Olson. Guys, almost ready for Big Ten baseball, but we have to wait another day, Tyler.
Yeah, absolutely ready for this to start. Nothing else in this season up to this point really matters. That's what the message that Rob Cooper and the rest of this Penn State team have been preaching this week. They've had a great start, but they need to keep it going in Big Ten play. And additionally, for Minnesota, we've seen what this team's capable of last year. If they can find that, they have just as good a shot at getting deep into the Big Ten tournament and potentially further as anyone else.
Absolutely, Brian. We just had some hail here at Medler Field moments ago, so certainly a wild weather day in store, but they're going to have a doubleheader Sunday and then play game one of the series tomorrow. So it should be an interesting weekend weather-wise. Hopefully things hold up a little better as the weekend goes on.
It was supposed to be a matchup of aces today between Max Meyer and Dante Biazzi. That's probably the key storyline now headed into tomorrow, as those two will have their start pushed back. What are we looking for as Biazzi's really emerged as Penn State's ace, Tyler?
Yeah, Biazzi's last two starts, he's gone 6 innings, gone 7 innings. He's, pitching really well for this Penn State team that has been dominated by their pitching staff. They've really carried them through this team. Their hitting's been just about average, but when you have a pitching staff that's on fire, that can really make a difference for your team. So I'd look for Penn State to have Biazzi go deep in the game tomorrow and potentially get a win against a very talented Minnesota team.
And you said it, Tyler. Biazzi is the type of guy who can go deep into a game. He had 13 strikeouts his last time out against UMass Lowell last week, and they're hoping to get a lot of innings out of him. And then Mason Malott, it seems like they've been in a 1-2 punch. Literally, they've been the only two pitchers Penn State's needed in a couple of games. There's a couple of games this season. So they're hoping to get a similar effort out of Biazzi tomorrow against this Gopher squad that's looking for some big wins.
Minnesota needs some wins. At this point last year, they got really hot, finished on a 30-5 run after Big Ten play started. Zach, are we expecting something similar this season with Minnesota starting to heat up at the right time?
They're going to have to, Brian, if they want to have similar success to what they had last year, where they qualified for Super Regionals and won the Big Ten. So they're going to have to start getting hot now. You mentioned it, 30-5. I'm not saying they have to do that, run the table like that through Big Ten play, but they're going to have to do something similar. It feels like they're going to have to heat up pretty nicely if they want to make a run like they have. Meanwhile, Penn State's taken all their thunder, and they've been near the top of the Big Ten so far this season. We'll see if they can keep it up here as the games start to get tougher, and hopefully the weather warms up.
Yeah, absolutely. For Minnesota, they have the talent, they have the ability, and it's the Big Ten. Anything can happen. You're getting to this part of the season where you're all playing the same teams. It's the same level of competition. Minnesota had a very tough start to their schedule, whereas Penn State's played some easier teams. So we'll just see what they can do, and this is where you find out who's for real.
Now, if you're watching back with us, you might realize that no games going on today. It is cold. It's windy. There's a little bit of snow, ice, and rain going on around us. Tyler, what's the weather looking like for the rest of the weekend?
Well, there's not going to be any rain or snow or anything like that on Saturday or Sunday, so we'll be able to get the games in. There's going to be one game tomorrow on Saturday and then a doubleheader on Sunday. The field conditions right now, it's a little bit muddy out on the warning track, but nothing that you couldn't play baseball on. What you look for in the cold, though, is potentially innings limits or pitch counts for the pitchers because, in this cold, it takes a bigger toll on your joints, on your muscles. So they're going to be stretching out more. They're going to be making sure to take care of their bodies. And for the pitchers, they may make sure they get some rest and don't burn them out really early in the Big Ten season and literally the first series.
Zach, looking at these two teams last year, completely drastic where they were at this point in the season. Why is that they look so different with those records?
Absolutely. Penn State was 4 games under 500. Minnesota 5 games above 500. It's not like they were this fantastic team at this time last year. Only 5 wins above 500. But Penn State, you look at the difference in each series. They've just been so much more competitive in every series, taking 2 of 3 from UCF, even taking a game from Duke, who's a team with dominant pitching. They've done a nice job just being competitive in every series and taking a game so far from every opponent they've played. They got to keep doing that through Big Ten play. You just can't get swept in a conference as tight as the Big Ten.
Let's take a look at some of the numbers now for both these teams. As both their we just mentioned the records, opposite directions. Tyler, what stands out to you for why Penn State's had such a great start?
Well, for the Nittany Lions, I mentioned it earlier, it's the pitching. And one thing in particular jumps off the stat sheet: 164 strikeouts to 62 walks for this Penn State pitching staff combined. That's the numbers you would like from your ace for an entire season. And they've gotten this, out of their entire pitching staff, top to bottom. And both of these teams, Penn State and Minnesota, have the same runs per game, 4.8. So their offenses have been more or less middle of the road. But Penn State's pitching has really been what's elevated them. 250 batting average from Minnesota. Nothing too terribly impressive, but, good enough that they can definitely improve down the line here.
Yeah, they're towing the Mendoza line, Brian, of the batting average. It's not something that stands out, but it's been Penn State's pitching, and I would say their timely hitting has been tremendous as the sun starts to come out behind us here. The timely hitting's been good for Penn State. They won a game last week on a walk-off that the left fielder just misplayed. It was that simple. It's gone their way so far in such a bizarre fashion at times that it's been sort of tremendous. But a couple of good hitting performances have helped them. You think about guys like Chris Kramer and Parker Hendershot. Jordan Bowersox is a guy as well you think about when you think about Penn State's hitting, but the pitching has certainly been the backbone.
Let's dive in more on Jordan Bowersox. He's been kind of the catalyst for this Penn State offense. Struggled at times, but they're starting to pick it up.
Absolutely. Jordan, he was a pedestrian hitter last year, as was much of the team. But this year, he has absolutely turned it on. Already 18 hits. He had 55 all of last year. He's a .316 hitter for this Penn State team. He played in Kalamazoo over the summer. He credits his hitting coach, Connor McLeod, with some of the improvements he's made in his technique and sort of the strides he's made as a hitter for this Penn State team. He's sort of turned into almost a reliable bat for them. He leads the team in runs scored with 13, and he has 2 ding-dongs to show for it.
Yeah, and Bowersox has some success against the Golden Gophers as well. The last time these two teams played in April of last year in their third game of that series, Bowersox drove in the only 2 runs that Penn State scored in that game, and he's 3 for 4 stealing bases this season, so he's a threat on the base pass as well.
Backing back out then to the Big Ten play in general. Penn State predicted to finish last in the Big Ten this year prior to the start of the season. They're currently sitting in second in Big Ten play. What else stands out to you guys as we look at the Big Ten standings?
I've been calling them the impossible dream Penn State baseball team. They've been so good so far in terms of being competitive amongst the other Big Ten teams through non-conference play. It comes as a surprise to everyone, I'm sure Penn State included. And we'll see if they can keep it up here. But they're sitting right behind the Illini, a half game back here. Michigan and Indiana, perennial powerhouse, are there as well. Maryland in the top half or so of the Big Ten, the top 5, if you will. So Penn State, they're certainly on pace to do some big things, but 13-3 is going to be awful tough to keep up through this Big Ten slate.
Yeah, the thing to remember, though, is this is the first weekend of actual Big Ten play, the part of it that actually matters. Every team is 0-0 right now, so there's an opportunity to start over for Minnesota, who struggled, and Penn State needs to keep that momentum going.
Minnesota last year kind of did hit that reset, but then they went on that 30-5 run, and in there, they played Penn State and swept the Nittany Lions in West Lafayette on a neutral site, playing on Purdue's field because it was wet, cold, and windy up in Minnesota last year. Traveled to Purdue. The Golden Gophers still get the sweep. That was a rough one for Penn State.
Absolutely. They got shellacked that entire series. They were really only competitive in that Friday night game, a 7-6 loss to the Gophers. Otherwise, it really wasn't close. And it says something about Big Ten weather when you have to move a game from one cold weather city to another. Luckily, they were still able to get it in, and that was even early April. But nonetheless, Dante Biazzi, he gave up 4 runs on 4 and 2 for innings, And I think that they're going to play a lot better this time. I think Biazzi's going to have a much better effort tomorrow. And it seems like this Penn State team does have a kick in the rear almost in terms of energy.
Yeah, and, Reggie Meyer pitched 5 scoreless innings in that series. He's now with the Cleveland Indians organization. We're going to have to see who's going to step up pitching-wise for both of these teams. Both teams have extremely good pitching staffs, so it could be a very low-scoring series this weekend.
Those pitching staffs are both really good, Tyler, but what's a Minnesota hitter maybe? The offense has really struggled off the bat this season. Who's someone in the lineup for the Gophers that can stand out this weekend?
Someone that I look for is Jordan Kaziski. He's a redshirt junior. He's more of a power bat on this team, and I think if Minnesota is going to start to turn the season around, he's the kind of person that can do that for them because he can really electrify the lineup. He leads the team with 15 RBIs, 6 doubles, a triple, and 2 home runs so he can get the extra base hits, and he played summer 2018 on the Saugerties Stallions. Our good friend with Com Radio, John Gross, was the play-by-play announcer for that team. So he's someone that I definitely look for to help this Minnesota team.
And I talked to John about about Jordan as well, and he was a pretty consistent player up in New York all throughout the summer. The Big Ten tournament most outstanding player. He's no stranger to big stages. That's not to say a series in early March is any indicator of that. But Kazicki's been a nice bat for this lineup, and the Gophers will need him if they want to come out and firing this weekend.
We've talked about the Minnesota pitching now a little bit. Let's dive into some of those arms. They have a couple big ones right at the top of the rotation, headlined by last week's Big Ten Pitcher of the Week in Max Meyer.
Meyer's been tremendous. He's the ace for this staff. He's their typical Friday starter. He was a Team USA invite last year, probably a Cape League guy this year as well, because he has just been tremendous. I assume he's going to get a lot of looks from scouts both this weekend and as the season goes on. But here's the thing that makes him interesting. 3 for 3 from the dish. This guy knows how to hit too. I'm not going to call him Shohei Ohtani, but I'm going to say he has some similar traits, and he's displayed them so far for this Minnesota team. Best way to help yourself out on the mound is by helping yourself at the plate, and Meyer's been doing exactly that so far. Another guy, Patrick Fredrickson. This kid is a national freshman pitcher of the year last year, and he's come in already with a 1-2 record of 4.43 ERA, so it hasn't been his best stuff so far. We'll see if Fredrickson can start to turn it around to 16-19 walks to strikeout ratio. It just hasn't been his year so far, but like Tyler mentioned, still got Big Ten play.
Penn State's turnaround between the 2018 season and this one has them on the verge of being ranked. Rob Cooper says it has a lot to do with the team's winning attitude. Let's take a look at what he said at this week's media availability.
I think the number one thing, though, that I keep talking about is you got a bunch of guys that have really committed to making the culture strong. And that first has to start with buying into believing you're a good player and that you're good enough to play at this level. Number two, then that you're a good team and that you can beat anybody that you're playing. We're playing better in some areas. We've got some new players, but I think it goes back to just the overall mindset and choice to really buy in and believe you're good.
And everyone truly believes every time we go out that we can beat anyone we play. And that's a lot different. Last year there was, we thought we could, but I don't know if everyone fully, believed it.
It all comes down to just trusting ourselves and just having trust in one another. Like when we're out there, not being afraid of guys and trying to do too much.
That was head coach Rob Cooper, left-handed pitcher Dante Biazzi, and catcher Ryan Sloniger talking about how the attitude has really changed this year, guys. And it's been more than just the attitude. They've been able to make some adjustments on the field as well, thanks to a new addition to the staff, Zach.
Absolutely. I'd like to introduce you to Sean Moore. He's an analytics guy. He's the new director of baseball operations for this Penn State team, originally from Iowa. And we know they love ball fields there. Field of Dreams comes to mind, of course. Sean Moore, he's a big analytics guy, where Rob Cooper's more of a Jims and Joe's guy. Sean Moore is X's and O's. And I think he's the perfect foil for Cooper in terms of how the baseball operations go for this team. You've seen it so far on the field, and it seems like their attitude, Moore has brought that attitude as well. They love using shifts. They like using analytics as well as in Moore does, and they've been doing it a lot more this year. When you watch Penn State play this weekend, keep an eye out for that, because they've been shifting a lot more than they have in previous years. It's been an interesting wrinkle to watch with this Penn State team, and perhaps a reason for their emergence.
Yeah, and it's on almost every single batter, and that's the thing about shifting, is it's kind of controversial. There's a lot of people who think that you should play baseball the old-fashioned way, and we saw the shifts actually bite Penn State a little bit against UMass Lowell. They were shifted towards right field on some left-handed batters, and they gave up 2 hits just on balls down the line. That'll happen sometimes, but in the end, the analytics are going to be right more often than not, and I think this is definitely a good direction for the Nittany Lions to go. And it's more than just shifting when it comes to analytics. You get a scouting report on every single player for the other team, what pitches they like, what pitches they don't like, what to throw at what time in the count, and that's something that can really help a pitcher up on the mound.
Also against UMass Lowell, Penn State unveiled a couple new freshmen for the first time in front of this home crowd. Tyler, who's a freshman that maybe stood out on the field to you from the Nittany Lions?
Well, one is Ryan Ford. He had a walk-off hit in that third game of that series, and he's been playing a lot more recently, especially in March. You've seen Rob Cooper trying to work the freshman into the lineup the last couple series, and he's been doing extraordinarily well. And another guy is Justin Williams, who's done well as well.
Yeah, Justin's been tremendous for this team. Penn State has had a nice influx of new talent. It hasn't been the genesis for this remarkable comeback for Penn State in terms of record, but they've been a healthy part of Penn State baseball this year. And to see freshmen able to come in, contribute right away, they had the fall to get it adjusted to college life, which can be tough in itself. And so they've done a nice job with Ryan and Justin of bringing them in slowly and starting to make them part of their platoon out in the field.
And for Williams, he started the last 4 games in a row. In that time, he has 4 hits and 6 RBIs. So that's nothing to sniff at all.
I'll tell you what, too. Justin Williams has a major league arm. They love him over there at third. Now another player across the infield that's not a freshman but a newcomer for these Penn State Nittany Lions. This is a great name for puns. Gavin Homer for Penn State is a great new addition, transferring from a community college in Michigan, Zach.
Absolutely. Originally from Battle Creek up there in Michigan. He's done a nice job with this Penn State team. He's a junior, so he's coming in with 2 years of eligibility left for Rob Cooper and company. He's been a healthy addition for them, both in the field and at bat. He's flashed the leather a couple times in the infield, and he's been a good addition. He's just like Ford and Williams. Seems like they have this new influx, this new energy around them. When you talk to them, when you see them on the field, it just feels like there's new energy. And for guys like Homer who brought that in, it's been huge for Penn State so far.
Homer's 5'9", 180. He's a creative little guy. And last season at Kellogg Community College, he managed to steal 25 bases. So he is absolutely a threat, and pitchers are going to have to watch him at first base. And he can get on base. He had a .492 on base percentage.
He can also has some pop, leads the team in home runs right now, like you guys said. Guys, we don't have any headgear, but let's get into some predictions for the weekend. No game happening today at Medler Field because of the cold and the rain and some wind. But looking at tomorrow, they'll play 1 game against the Golden Gophers and then 2 games doubleheader on Sunday. What are you guys looking for overall in the series, and what's a prediction, Zach?
What I'm looking for overall is Penn State starters going deep into the game. I know they've been using Kyle Verbitsky a little bit out of the bullpen to alleviate Mason Malott, who's been their best reliever so far, and it seems like their only reliever at times. But for Penn State, I'm looking for good starts from Biazzi, from Mock, and from Dees through the 3 games, assuming those are the probables still. And, if they can go deep into games, I think that gives Penn State a huge chance to win. I'd pick against them. It's tough to pick against Penn State because of what they've done so far. It's just been such an aberration from what people are used to seeing with Penn State baseball. I do think they get the win tomorrow in this Meyer-Biazzi showdown. I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a very low-scoring game with 2 aces on the mound. And then I think Minnesota splits the doubleheader on Sunday. So I think Penn State takes 2 of 3. And I think they're going to be able to split that doubleheader and get the win off a strong start from Dante Biazzi tomorrow.
Yeah, I agree with all that 100%. I think Biazzi is Penn State's ace is going to help them get that win. And then you've just got the right vibe in the building for Penn State right now. There's so much more optimism compared to last year when it just didn't feel right. This year it feels right for this Penn State team, and I think that they're going to keep that momentum. I think Minnesota does get one because they're a very talented team, but I think the Nittany Lions keep their momentum going through the early part of the Big Ten season.
Both Zach and Tyler like the Nittany Lions to take 2 or 3 from the reigning Big Ten champs. Coming up next after this Minnesota-Penn State series for both these squads, the Nittany Lions will take on Binghamton midweek game this upcoming week, and then they travel to Purdue. That's 4 very winnable games for Penn State. The road does not get much easier for the Golden Gophers. They have to take on the Nebraska Cornhuskers, another team predicted to finish in the top of the Big Ten slate. Overall, that's going to do it for us today from Medler Field, getting you prepared for our upcoming series, Big Ten opening series between Minnesota and Penn State. For our entire We Are Sports production staff, Tyler Olson and Zach Kaplan, I'm Brian McLaughlin signing off.